If you ask any survival player what the best version to play Minecraft in is, 99% of them will say 1.16 because the combat system is a lot more in-depth than clicking rapidly, not to mention the wider variety in enemies, weapons, building blocks, and enemy AI. And whilst the AI problem can be fixed server-side, adding new building blocks and enemies becomes difficult without lagging out the server with tons of NPCs and invisible armor stands all over the place, or forcing people to install a resource pack that has a 50% chance of just lagging out their game anyway because 1.8 is terrible at loading resource packs. And you can't deny that everything in Skyblock is very much PvE based, in dungeons or grinding slayers or combat levels. And unfortunately, when it comes to slayers, the lack of PvE diversity is something that ruins the fun and causes you to do nothing more than standing in one spot against the wall or in water and just clicking it faster. The only way to make this harder is to artificially inflate difficulty by adding health and damage, which doesn't actually make anything harder, just makes things last longer. Whereas with the 1.16 combat system, your attacks have to be timed and you can't just spam click to keep enemies away. Slowing your attacks down of course heavily nerfs things like lifesteal, which is so OP that they had to reduce it for dungeons anyway, and opens the way to the ability to create more challenging arenas for enemies and bosses with terrain that makes you think beyond backing yourself up into a corner and clicking. The increased diversity of weapons and your second hand is also game changing. Tridents would be a new way to attack, crossbows are an alternative to regular bows, as well as tipped arrows which can maybe have their own stats. Shields are overpowered in the base game, and in Skyblock that would be no different. So if Skyblock were to update to 1.16, I think shields should not be included. What the second hand is also useful for is swords with abilities or other items with abilities being held in the offhand. Things like the ornate zombie sword that would be nice to have on hand all times, or having your overflots, Madlock's bat phone, or bow in another hand is also nice to have. Not to mention, you could add weapons that are one-handed or two-handed, or have different boosts when used together. A little known fact, but when you play dungeons in any version above 1.8, your teammates get a glowing effect that allows you to see them through walls and keep up with your teammates. It's easy not to fall behind, and it's very useful if you get lost. The glowing effect can also be used to highlight other important things in the base game, such as fairy souls, quest item locations, and places of interest just for the sake of tutorial. Some of the current game things would have to be heavily modified to fit 1.9 combat, of course. For starters, the current dungeon system with a large number of mobs is obviously designed to have a large number of mobs to counteract the fact that you can spam attacks. The number of mobs would have to be reduced heavily, and the damage your sword deals would have to be increased, as the current attack speed in 1.8 is 1 attack per 0.4 seconds, and in 1.9 is 1 attack per 0.6 seconds. It also opens the way for weapons with different attack cooldown to add an extra stat to the game for people to focus on. Although the current game's attack speed can get it down to 0.2 seconds, the 1.9 system is a lot easier to implement a more wide range of attack speeds. And there's also the issue with the rest of the network. 1.16 is a much more intensive server to run on a system and would lag the rest of the network. I think many of us could agree that moving Skyblock to a new Minecraft server entirely separate to the Hypixel main server would provide everyone with a less laggy experience, although it would be costly for Hypixel to do because server capacity isn't free. Nonetheless, I think Hypixel Skyblock would be better if it updated to 1.16, even if nothing much changed the gameplay wise and the attack delay was changed to be like it is in 1.8, the variety in new weapons, new mobs, new building blocks would make the game a lot more enjoyable and varied. And the ability to give items custom textures and models based on names without the need of Optifine is also a big update that would bring Skyblock to life, and a good example of this is Winecraft, which runs on 1.8. So, do expect a very in-depth video about Winecraft coming in the near future. Not sponsored, by the way. Make sure to visit our Twitch and maybe discuss this topic with us once we are live the next time, link in the description, or just leave a comment telling us what you think. And don't forget to drop a like and subscribe. See ya!